Frances, the book that you want to talk about today was actually made into a film, but this book won Britain's best novel of all times in BB's 2003 poll, called The Big Read, The Lord of the Rings. So tell us a bit about this book and the author.
Oh, this is a trilogy of books by J R R Tolkien, who was a brilliant man. He studied at Oxford and he was friends with C.S. Lewis, you remember from the Narnia series.
Right.
And they used to talk about their faith together. They're both Christians, but from different types. And they used to like creating stories. Tolkien was very interested in ancient folklore and languages. And they used to talk to each other in languages they created. And of course, that came out in Tolkien's book. He created a language for the book, complete with written runes. And he was a very clever man and way ahead of his time, because things come out in the books that are happening now. For instance, AI, creation of, they're trying to create an intelligence. And this is what happened in the books. They created orcs, evil creatures. But this epic story is of little people called hobbits. And they're like full-grown humans, but they're small, a bit like pygmies really, and they're very hairy. And they inhabit a place called Middle Earth, in a place called the Shire, and which echoes our land, UK. And it's said that the Shire was in Birmingham, but I think it was probably more likely to be in Hampshire on the south coast, which is where I was brought up. So The Lord of the Rings is an epic tale about a quest of 12 different types of people. There's hobbits, like Frodo, elves, who live forever, like angels, dwarves, who originated in the caves under the earth and love to carve out palaces and underground cities, and humans like us, and Gandalf the wizard, but obviously in a good way. In a way, he's almost like a Christ-like figure, because he appears at times to save them. And there's an evil sorcerer, Sauron, who tries to take over the world. He lives in the lands of Mordor and has enslaved 9 kings of old. So these are bound together by rings called the ancient rings of power. And of course, you may have heard of the One Ring, which is the most powerful one. It's the one that holds the power over all the others. And it was forged in the fires of Mordor, which is, I think, it's like the fires of hell, really. And it's the person or being who possesses this ring is all powerful. So that's why Sauron wants it. It's got a kind of drawing power to it.
Right.
And as Bilbo in The Hobbit found, he discovered the ring. When you put it on, you become invisible. And so you can't be seen by people around, but you can be seen by the evil spirit world. That's just in the story, obviously.
Yes.
And there's a quote which I like, one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. So that's the quote in the story. So the ring, the one ring of power, binds all the kings and the ancient kings who became enslaved, and they were called ring wraiths.
Right. Because
they all had rings, and but the one ring binds them all together. So you've got the evil one, like Satan, really.
Yes.
Sauron, who wants to get the ring and get the power back again.
Yeah. So Gollum, he wanted, his aim or ambition was to get this ring, wasn't it? Because he got twisted by his evil desires, shall we say. And do you think then that people get twisted by sin today, Frances, in their own lives?
Yes, I think they do. Until you come to Christ and have the old person dealt with, that original sin nature, you can be subject to that. But Jesus, when he died on the cross, he did away with all that because of on the cross, he took sin on himself, of course, as we know, many of us know. And so he died once to sin, as it says in the book of Romans. And it says in Romans 8, verse 1, it says, there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. For the law of the Spirit of life has set me free, or set us free from the law of sin and death. So that's what Jesus did. So in this book, you have the power of sin, shall we say, in the ring, the one ring, and that's done away with. But obviously, different story. It's literary license, really.
Yeah,
But that's what we see.
It sounds a fascinating book to read and very descriptive. And I know that apparently C.S. Lewis, he actually loved reading Tolkien's books, didn't he? Because they were, as you say, they were friends. And I believe that Tolkien was a Catholic and he was instrumental in C.S. Lewis's faith. And because he was an atheist, wasn't he, C.S. Lewis, at one time? And he come to Christianity. And I believe that Tolkien was a bit dismayed that he actually went to the Catholic, that Lewis went to the Catholic Church. But it's an amazing story about the author and this book, for sure. So what do you think this book can teach us about faith?
Well, it's the whole themes of the book. It can, because we used to read it to our children when they were small, before bedtime, and they can imagine the far lands and the stories of mission and adventure, and the ideas of life, themes of life like salvation, redemption.
Yes.
And it introduces themes of maybe aspiring to something, and there's other things also like betrayal, sin, loyalty, love, and fighting battles.
Yes.
So, I mean, they're all very good sort of moral themes. And I think from there, you could introduce Jesus and the fact that we can be saved. So although it's not like the Bible scriptures, there's parallels, similar themes that you can see through them. I think that's perhaps what Tolkien wanted to convey.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, though. I think you're right there. He does want to convey about the Lord, doesn't he, in his writing, for sure. So, Frances, I think this sounds a great book to read, and I think there will be people who want to read this because it sounds very descriptive. Would you say it was a descriptive book?
Oh, it's highly descriptive, yes. The way Tolkien writes, he writes in intricate detail about the Shire, the hobbits' houses, and it conjures up an idea in your head about what they look like. And of course, the films exactly recreate them.
Yes.
And then when the 12 go on the mission, they meet the elves and the elven cities and in the woods and in the mountains. And they're all very intricately built. And I think the films really recreate those very well. The Gothic turrets and the arches and the bricks, the stones. And yes, I think he's very descriptive. And of course, the battle scenes,
yes,
which they are quite descriptive, but they're not too gory. They're not. He just says about people falling in battle. But I just wonder how my children used to sleep at night after the battle scenes. We didn't major on those too much.
Yeah. So if I was asked to ask you, how many marks out of 5 you would give this book? How many marks would you give?
5.
Well, that's high praise. So, Frances, thank you so much for telling us about the book By Your Bedside. Tell us the title and the name of the author again, please.
So that's The Lord of the Rings by J R R Tolkien.
Thank you,
And
Frances.
you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on eBay as well for $6.99.
Great.
Check.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Frances.